Hello everyone, my name is Sadaq Aramide. In this video I'm going to show you how to implement GSS on a virtual machine running inside a Windows 10 environment. GE has tested implementing GSS uh, in Windows 10 environment uh, using Docker Desktop. And needless to say, it's only for development and you shouldn't use this in a production environment. The problem for me was using Docker Desktop wasn't easy because it crashed on my system. And I searched, and at the end of the day, I decided to just move and go with the VirtualBox. So I installed VirtualBox, and inside the VirtualBox, I created a new virtual machine, which is currently I'm running Centos7. So let me explain you what we are going to do today. Uh, The first phase of this video, we are going to start with installing Kubernetes on the Centos7. After that, we are going to go to the implementation part of the GSS, which I have to say that I'm not going into the details. If you want a detailed explanation of every part, you should watch the G video, which is available in the documentation. Also, this implementation only consists of one node, so you don't have any worker nodes. This is a one node cluster. It's a little bit hacky, but it does work. So let's start. I find using the VirtualBox terminal a little difficult to use, so I installed PuTTY to connect to my virtual machine. And I suggest you do the same because copy pasting with the PuTTY is really easy. Okay, so the first thing you should do is disable firewall. You shouldn't do this in a production environment, I'm telling you. But because we are only using it for development, it's a wise decision to you to actually stop the firewall and disable it for the next session if you restart the Linux operating system. So the next thing you should do is disable the swap. If the swap is available, you cannot install Kubernetes, and actually kubeadm would not initiate if the swap is enabled. So disable it for this session. Also disable it if you restart the system and log it again. So I'm going to comment this section and I'm going to save this. Okay, stop. Okay, so we are good to go. In this part, I'm going to install Kubernetes on my Centos7. For this, I'm going to use kubeadm. For installing kubeadm, go to the kubernetes.io site in the documentation and search for kubeadm. Installing Kubernetes kubeadm. I'm just going to copy paste some of the script. If you want to know every part, so go to the site and read it later. Okay, and I'm going to install kubeadm, kubelet, and kubectl. This is a CentOS. CentOS is based on Red Hat distribution, so I'm going to use this part. And okay, this part is important. You shouldn't install the latest version of the kubeadm, kubelet, and kubectl. You should install Kubernetes version 1.19.1 because we are going to implement GSS 5 to 6 and G tested it with version 1.19.1. To be honest, I tested with the later version and I encountered some problems. I'm not going to tell you I was able to install the GSS with the latest version, but you have to edit some of the Kubernetes files to be able to achieve this. So I highly suggest you go with the version 1.19.1. So I'm going to copy this part and paste it here. Okay. For this part, you should add a version to the kubelet, kubeadm, and kubectl. Okay, I have already created a script here. I'm just going to paste it. So sudo yum install by kubelet version 1.19.1 and so on. This is going to take some time. I'm going to stop the video. Okay, our installation is finished. Let me check the version. Okay, as you can see, the kubeadm version is 1 major minor 19. Okay, kubectl version. Okay, we are good to go. Okay, we install the kubeadm. Let's enable kubelet. Okay, in this part, I'm going to install, before bootstrapping the cluster with kubeadm, I'm going to install Docker on the my CentOS operating system. For this, I'm going to use the Docker site. CentOS, Docker. Install Docker engine on CentOS operating system. Okay, I'm just going to copy paste some of the commands here. Okay. Now, if I want to install the latest version of the Docker, I have to copy and paste it in the terminal. But if you want to install a specific version of the Docker, you have to follow these steps. You have to copy paste it and get the version number of the different Dockers and use this command with the version string to install the Docker. So based on the G documentation, we have to use a Docker version that is tested, not compatible. There is no compatibility between the Docker and Kubernetes. They only tested. So based on my research, you have to use version 19.03. But I tested with the latest version of the Docker and I haven't any issues. So if you want, you can choose a specific version, which is 19. Let me show you which version you have to install it. Okay, you have to install one of these. Okay, 19. Also, I have to add that when you are bootstrapping a cluster with kubeadm, the kubeadm will tell you that this the latest version of Docker is not tested with this version of the Kubernetes, but I already tested it and I haven't any issues. So go ahead, install the latest Docker. This is going to take some time. I'm going to stop the video. Okay, so Docker is installed on CentOS. The version I'm installed is 2010.7. Okay, this is for later, but if you want the Bifrost to run on your user, you have to add it to the Docker group. So we're going to do this with these two commands. Okay, already exists. And I'm going to add to the Docker group. Okay, so let's bootstrap a Kubernetes cluster on our CentOS operating system. I do have a command here, which let me copy it. Okay, you have to use the kubeadm init command for it. Copy. Okay, and you have to specify which version of Kubernetes you want to install on this machine. If you don't actually specify, the kubeadm will try to download the latest version of the Kubernetes. Okay, this is going to take some time. I'm going to stop the video until this finishes. Okay, before stopping, this Docker version is not on the list of validated versions. Latest validated version of 1903. This kubeadm will give this error if you use a higher version of the Docker, that's the one which is validated with this Kubernetes version. But I already tested it, so no issue. I haven't encountered any issue. So, but don't use it in the production environments. I just didn't want to copy paste the version number and do all the other installations. So, okay, that's it. As you can see, we installed Kubernetes successfully on our CentOS operating system. And before starting, I have to copy and paste these on the terminal. So if you have another worker node, you have to copy and paste it in their terminal to join them to the Kubernetes network. But because we are implementing GSS on a single node cluster, you don't need to have to do this. Okay, so let's clear the screen. So as you can see, our node is not ready, and the reason for that is because we haven't installed a network pod. So let's start a network pod for our cluster. I'm going to search network pod here. And cluster networking. You can choose different pods in here, but personally I go with the weaveness. So the reason for it is because it's very simple to implement. Okay, integrating Kubernetes via add-on. Okay, that's it. You just have to copy this and paste it in your terminal. I'm going to delete this one. That's it. Now let's check. You have to wait a little bit to see if our pod is getting ready or not. So let's watch it for every 1 second. I'm gonna stop the video until it's ready. Okay, so our node is ready. As you can see, we can start deploying GSS. So first of all, I'm going to create a folder on the desktop, Linux desktop, and move the GSS installations files and images to that folder. Okay, so we moved the file from my Windows to the CentOS operating system. From now on, I'm just going to copy paste some commands in the terminal, and I highly suggest you watch the GE's video relating to the GSS implementation on the GE documentation site. All the steps are similar, but we are going to add a little script in the process which makes us enable to run GSS on a single node cluster. So here we go. First of all, I'm going to install Bifrost on the system. I'm going to check whether we have installed Bifrost or not. Yes, Bifrost is installed. Now, in this section, you have to give Kubernetes access to the small world database. You're going to do this in the data server authorization, and you have to and give the SW Cloud user access to the database. I'm not going to cover this in this video. You can do this on your own. Okay, in this part, I'm going to set up the NFS server. Based on the G documentation, uh, they're stated that you don't need the NFS server if your cluster includes only one worker node. But I encountered some issues when I didn't use the NFS server. So I highly suggest you set up the NFS server and continue to implement the GSS. I'm going to just copy paste some of the files. You're going to use it later. Let me show you what command I use after the download is finished actually, so you can follow the steps. Okay, I used this command, install nfs utils. Okay, now I'm going to start the server with this command. I'm going to enable it, and I'm going to create a because this is for development, I'm giving full permission. But if you're using in production environment, you have to use 755. Okay, I'm gonna open and add. This is my server name, and this is the permission that I'm giving to this directory. I'm gonna save it. Exports. Okay, it's correct. Okay, our NFS server is ready to be used. Okay, so now I already created all my script based on the GSS folder I created on the directory. So I'm just gonna copy and paste and continue this until we deploy the GSS. Okay, the password is done. Okay, so we created the secrets. We can check it with the kubectl get secrets GSS prod namespace. Okay. So this part you have to edit your PDI input manifest YAML file, but I'm not going to cover it. You have to watch the video on the G documentation site. Let's create a general local directory, and now we have to import Nexus images to the Docker. My current virtual machine has a 18 gigabytes of RAM and 6 CPU core. Before this, I used an old PC laptop which had 8 gigabytes of RAM, and it was Core i5. So it took a lot of time to load these images to the Docker. Also, uh, there are some steps ahead of us, which in one of those, when I was trying to load the images to the Nexus, I couldn't. There was some error in the Python script. So I researched a lot. I couldn't find anything, and suddenly someday I found out that it was because of the low configuration of my system. So I highly suggest to you that if you are using GSS on your local system, you use a system with a higher configuration. Okay, let's label the Docker tag. Make the certificates available. And I'm going to unzip this. Oh, I already unzipped it actually. Clear the screen. So here I'm copying NIG network inventory gateway config files to my local GIS deploy directory. Based on your product, you should copy the product that you want to this directory. Okay, now, okay, in this part you should resolve the host names. Actually, I already did that. Okay, I already did that. So something you should have in mind. Okay. Okay, no problem. And I'm going to copy paste a bunch of bunch of scripts. Don't try to write these. These scripts are already available in the documentation. You should only watch it. So but yes, I understand getting track of these files if you want to write them. It's a little bit hard, but they are all available. Okay, I'm gonna reload the daemon and restart the Docker. Okay, so the next part is the only part which is different from what you see in the documentation. Okay, this part is the only part that is different from what you read in the documentation. I'm going to copy and paste this code. It's going to untaint the our server, which means that Kubernetes can select it to run pods on it. Okay, and I'm going to add a label to our server. This label is used in the YAML file as a selector. So we are labeling our server, and basically we are telling Kubernetes that you can run the pods on the server. Okay, our server is labeled. Next part, we're going to run, okay, let's make Nexus transport layer security secrets available. Okay, now I'm going to run NFS storage provisioner manifest file. After that, I'm going to run Nexus manifest.yaml file, and it's pretty straightforward from the section, so it shouldn't be any issue. This is going to take some time. I'm going to stop video till this finishes. Nginx ingress controller manifest YAML file successfully implemented. This S here means successful and it's healthy. In this section, I'm going to apply Nexus manifest file. and this is going to take some time. Unfortunately, I couldn't show what's inside the Nexus manifest file because, and I'm actually telling you to go to the G site because I'm not sure if I'm allowed because of the copyright issues. I don't want to make any issue about this. So for editing the Nexus manifest file, go to the G documentation site and watch the video available. This is going to take some time. I'm going to stop the video again. Okay, so our Nexus manifest is applied. And one thing, if you have a problem, for example, it's running, and after some time it crashes and you see the failure error here, it's you should investigate it. You can investigate this. The name of the pod, let's get the name of the pod actually. Okay, this is the name of the Nexus pod. In the Nexus namespace. So in the events section, if you see it's going to have some different issues, but the issue I encountered was readiness and liveness issue, which it's documented in the G documentation how to resolve it. I highly suggest you, if you encounter this, go and read about this. Okay, our pod is running and I don't see any issue with it. We are good to go to the next section, which is applying the Nginx ingress controller. Apply this. It shouldn't take a lot of time for this. Let's see and wait. I'm going to stop the video until this finishes. Okay, now load cache container images to the Docker. I'm going to load the GSS cache container. This is going to take some time, so I'm going to stop the video. Our GIS cache container is loaded. I'm going to load the NIG cache container, which we need for the network inventory gateway. Okay, our NIG cache container image is low. Let's check the images. Okay. As you can see, we have NIG and GIS cache container load to the Docker. So, before the deployment can be initialized, the Docker images must be loaded into the Nexus from the cache container images. And I already have a script to load both the GSS and the NIG cache container. But before that, let's check if we can log into the Docker. Yes, if you cannot log in successfully to the Docker, you have to wait. Because if you proceed with the command for loading the cache container image to the Nexus, you're going to see some errors. So I'm going to run this command. This is going to take a lot of time, so I'm going to stop the video. Okay, successfully finished. Now we load the NIG Docker images into the Nexus. So NIG Docker image is loaded into the Nexus. Let's ensure that can log to the Nexus to pull the images. Yes, okay. Now we're going to apply our deployments. Okay, it's successfully finished. Let's check our pods. So we have to wait until all of these got run, actually. Okay, as you can see, all pods are running, so you can test the implementation. One more thing, you have to map an IP address to this server name. You can do this in the host file located in the system sudo drivers etc hosts. So I added the CentOS Cube server IP address, and as you can see, yes, the system is working. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.